Awesome. Welcome. Oh, I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I am your host, Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior and attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington, and serving information entrepreneurs around the world. Today, I am welcoming Trevor Turnbull to the show. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And it's been like 6 months since we last hopped on a call like this. So we were overdue.
We were overdue. So good to see you again. We were just joking that even though it was a few months, it feels much longer than that.
Yeah, totally.
Based on what's been going on. But let's get you introduced. For folks that don't know Trevor and I, our paths actually crossed a few years back, and Trevor's been a really fun person to know online. We got connected again last year, and that was such a pleasure to be able to participate in your mastermind. So I got Trevor onto my show. I'm super excited to have him here. For those of you that don't know Trevor is the CEO of LinkedIn into Leads. Sorry, let me say that correctly. I have to laugh for a moment because there's a program that's called LinkedIn Helper, Linked Helper, but I always say it wrong. And then the woman is foreign who actually introduces it. And so it's Linked Helper. Anyways, I want to always screw up LinkedIn now. Linked into Leads.
Mine's a tongue twister too. Sure.
Well, I wanted to say it wrong, but let me start that over. Trevor is the CEO of Linked into Leads, founder of the Transformative Expert Selling Programs, and author of the LinkedIn Linchpin Method Guide, which empowers certified coaches and consultants to unapologetically share their gifts with their future clients using video and clone their authentic voice with virtual assistants. He has served over 26,000 people with his repeatable, predictable, measurable client acquisition system and has shared his story and methods in numerous media publications, including Forbes, Entrepreneur, Time, Money, and Business Insider. Trevor, and I know we joked, you're just north of me a ways. I feel like I could, I joked, I think, because you just received my Christmas card 3 weeks later than everybody else. And you're like, you're a Canadian that's actually relatively close, but
yeah, not too far away. We're still it's probably a 5-hour drive from where I am now. We were a lot closer before when I lived in Vancouver, but
well, and that's what I was originally thinking. And then I realized you guys, I think, are in the Big White area now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just outside of Kelowna. We're in West Kelowna, so on the other side of the lake. And Big White's like 45 minutes away.
That's amazing. When did you make that move?
About a year and a half ago. We have 2 boys that are 2 and now 4. So one of them just turned 4. And we were living in a 1,000 square foot townhouse in Vancouver, or in Burnaby, just outside of Vancouver before. Yeah, I could see you going like,
oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. I know. 1,000 square feet. I've got 2 little people in my life too. And our home doesn't feel big enough right now in the midst of COVID. I feel like we could double in size and be very happy.
Yeah, and thank God that we made the move before all this stuff hit, because we got a dog too, and it was a townhouse that was had lots of stairs, so you had to take the dog out 3 times a day. I just can't even imagine being back there right now, but we have so much space now. We're like on the side of a mountain. It's in a little cul-de-sac, so the kids just go out and play. And
that's amazing. Yeah, how did you choose that area?
I actually, like 15 years ago, was the first time that I went to Kelowna, and I said, I'm going to live here one day. And it was just kind of one of those things. So for people that are watching, listening, that aren't familiar with Canada, if you're going to live anywhere in this country, you go to the West Coast, because everywhere else is freaking freezing cold, And if you're going to live somewhere that doesn't rain all the time, which I know you understand that in Seattle, you just come a little bit further in from the coast, and where we are they call it the Okanagan. So it's like wine and orchard country and lakes. So you get nice hot summers and you get a winter, but it's not too cold. So it's enjoyable. We have ski hills close by, kind of like paradise in Canada, really. Like
Well, it sounds amazing. We own property just over the Cascades, and so I'm guessing that you guys are
Be
just
very similar.
north of the Pasayten Wilderness.
Yeah,
'Cause we're right on the edge of
I think
that.
so. I'll Google it later, but I'm
Yes,
guessing yes,
I'm
probably
pretty
yes.
sure because it's the dry side of the mountains and it's amazing weather. It does get some snow and stuff in the winter, but we go there all the time and it's just extraordinary. It's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, for
Wh-
sure.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys are doing well and in a beautiful area. I will say I've been to Big White one time, and it was early in my law career. I was an independent contractor. I mostly had my own clients, but I worked with some firms in town at the time. And one of them that I was working for had a big project, and he wanted to fly his whole team to Big White for like a celebratory weekend. I had to write a
Wow.
brief and I was sick as a dog, but I still went. And the funny thing is he had rented two small planes to take this group. It was so cold and it was in a winter storm. One of the planes couldn't get there. The windshield kept icing over and they could not de-ice it fast enough, so it actually had to turn around and take people back to Seattle. It was a freaky flight. I will say that the plane I was on, I just had to be like not watching what was going on. It was one of these like just cover my eyes and ears. We
Wow.
got there okay. Yeah, but it was a phenomenally beautiful spot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice once
Yep.
you get here safely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was such a relief to climb off that little plane.
Yeah, no
Anyways,
doubt.
well, tell us for folks that are getting to know you, tell us how you got started. And first of all, I should share a disclaimer that I'm a total fan of LinkedIn. So I'm going to be
Yeah.
a little biased in my questions, but how did you become a fan of LinkedIn and basically create this whole business around it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the Coles Notes version so it doesn't turn into the 40-minute episode. Then we'll talk about something else. But so in 2006, I had a website development company. So I kind of dove into entrepreneurship after being in sales for like 3 years, and kind of stumbled my way through launching my first venture like all of us do. And at that time though, like LinkedIn wasn't really a thing. Like Facebook was barely kind of starting 2006, 2007, you know?
LinkedIn was like a resume holder, right? For the longest time. Like
Yeah.
people would use it kind of just as a traditional place to post a resume.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't what it is today, which is more a social selling, even a content distribution platform, like a social platform, right?
Well, right. And the people who really use it well today, it's not at all a resume. It's very client facing, right? Everything is like you're saying, it's about connecting with the right folks, the social selling, and really being outwardly facing, not
Yeah.
such a traditional platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So like 2006 to like say 2008, 2009, it was starting to get legs underneath it and I was paying attention to it a little bit, but I was more focused on like Twitter and Facebook back then because that was the hot thing, that's kind of what people were using. But in 2009 or so, I was working with a digital marketing agency based in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is where I'm from. And we had a client that was a professional football team, and they were asking about social media at the time. They're like, we need somebody to help us with this. Our fans are on it. Our players are on it. We don't even know what they're doing on it. Our coaches are on it. Our sponsors are on it. Can you teach us? And I was like, yep, I'll teach you. I had no idea. Like I was just kind of playing with things, right? So I dove head first into the sports world and social media. And that headed me down a path where I started to discover LinkedIn along the way because I was using it to connect with people along the way. For example, one of the things that I did when I was working with this professional sports team was we created an aggregated website that like pulled all their social feeds into one site. And it was very innovative at the time. Like every site does this now, but back then it was like very cutting edge. And I used a combination of Twitter and LinkedIn to start reaching out to people in the like media space, sports media space. And I started getting responses really fast. And quite honestly, I still remember the day. Like it just shocked me how my small little world of the town/city that I lived in just expanded because I started to receive feedback from people that I thought there was never an opportunity to even communicate with them. the one person in particular was this lady named Kathleen Hessert. People might not know who she is, but she was a sports commentator in NASCAR in the 70s, which is like groundbreaking. Like imagine a woman,
Yep.
a sports commentator, like she was a pioneer in her space, right? And then she became a media consultant, like working with NCAA Division I athletes to prepare them for being in front of a camera at the age of 18, like here's how not to say the wrong thing. So anyways, I reached out to her with the stuff that we were doing. I said, do you want to, we're doing a webinar. Would you like to come on as a topic expert? And she was like, yes. And I was like, from that moment, I was like, whoa, okay, this just changed my world. It was almost like I saw 15 years into the future, what it was going to be like now. Yeah. And I was like, I'm all in. And I quit that job and I went full in on that stuff. And LinkedIn became a huge part of how I built my network. And that's how I connected with Lewis Howes, of course, which Lewis is kind of tied to our story even too. It's so funny. I got to tell that story as a part of this. But so Lewis and I connected, and because we were both kind of doing sports social media stuff, we were both really heavily using LinkedIn.
I was going to say, he had early roots in LinkedIn. This doesn't surprise me at all that you guys overlapped there.
Yeah, that was how we ended up connecting. Was I registered a domain called Linked Influence because I was like, I'm going to create a course on this. What would I call it? Linked Influence. Registered it, sat on it for like a year. And then Lewis had the exact same idea. We had never talked before. He Googled it, saw that I owned the domain, reached out to me and said, hey man, you want to sell it? And I was like, not really. And I said, but you want to work together? I said, I'll give it to you, but I want to collaborate together because I see you're doing some pretty cool stuff. And he's like, let's do it. So we ended up partnering and working together on Sports Networker, which was a property that he owned. And I did sports recruiting and taught people how to use LinkedIn and how to get jobs in the sports industry using LinkedIn. He launched Linked Influence, the first version of that course, with a business partner at the time. Long story condensed is Lewis ended up launching his podcast, School of Greatness, and the Linked Influence course just kind of was falling to the wayside, and it needed somebody to come in and pick it up. So it came full circle where I had this domain and an intention on creating a course. Lewis started it, and then I came in and picked it up. And it's been kind of a snowball effect since then. It's just consumed my life for the better part of a decade.
That's amazing. Well, the thing that I love about your story and about LinkedIn is the opportunity that certain platforms have for this real, genuine connection, right? And it's why any day of the week, if I've got time to spend on social media, I prefer to spend it on LinkedIn. I feel like people there, for the most part, that's not to say, because there are definitely some trends that I see there that I don't like, and lots of spamming that happens nowadays. But
me too.
like, I'm sure that could be a whole separate conversation. But for people that use it the right way, and I've really tried hard from the time that I got to really know LinkedIn to use it in a way that creates meaningful connection. And it's been so fabulous. I've just met the most interesting people through LinkedIn and I joke, like I was a old-fashioned Rolodex person. Like I'd be like, yeah, put me in your Rolodex. Like if you need something, call me. Yes. Like think of me as a real person that, is in a little whatever library or Rolodex on your desk, like not just an online connection, because those so often fall to the wayside.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of the first places that people turn to, especially now. Like if we fast forward to where we are in this current reality, 2021, anybody that's maybe resisted like social media, if they hit a point where they're like, especially now where they're like, well, I can't go to conferences, I can't go to networking events, I can't even go to my breakfast social anymore.
Right. I can't go to coffee, all the things I can't go to.
Yeah. And the things that used to generate them business, because it was FaceTime, it was like connecting with people eye to eye, shaking hands, it went away. So what we saw in the last year was slowly people were like, well, it'll go back to normal. Oh shit, it's not going back to normal. Oh my God, all of my leads just dried up. Oh wow, I have no clients. Should I shut down my business, or should I finally figure out how to digitize my business and network online? in the first place they turn is always LinkedIn, because it's known as the business networking platform, right? But to your point, what that did, and this is always the trend, this isn't anything new, is that once it becomes mainstream, it becomes less effective. And marketers, once they start teaching people how to use something and do it effectively, they ruin platforms. And I'm not saying LinkedIn's ruined yet, but you already alluded to it, that there's trends towards excessive spamming and just people not using it for what the intention of it was, which is to network, right?
That's right. Well, and you and I could probably, you for sure, but I would be very happy to help, could teach a class on what to watch for, like how to distinguish between somebody who's using it the right way and somebody who's not. Because I think in the initial days, like people can tend to just accept connections from anybody, or, you know, not recognize when they're actually getting one of the messages that comes from one of these mass mailing type of robots or whatever.
Yeah.
And all it takes is, if you're on there often enough, you see those trends. Like I think 5 times in a week, I got the exact same connection message. Literally. And it's just like, no, this isn't going to work for me. This is not a real person sitting behind their profile actually wanting this connection.
Yeah. Well, and this is like, before we hopped on and hit record on this, we were saying, what direction should we take this call? And we're like, let's just see where it goes. But honestly, the last 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of 2021 here, I've had this moment where I had to take a step back, because every time these kind of things happen, like I've been teaching how to use this platform the better part of a decade, you know, and especially the last year or two, people are really paying attention. Like I've got a lot of people that listen to what I have to say, and it's a double-edged sword, because one, it's like, it's amazing that I have people that listen to what I have to say. Like that's incredible. The downside is that when everybody listens to the advice that I have, they all go and do the same thing. And then all of a sudden it's just not effective when it comes to what we used to teach, that is, which is those scripts you were talking about. Like that used to work very effectively.
Yeah.
And then everybody started doing it, and you could see the script and the pitch coming a mile away. And then people just ignore it.
Yes.
All right.
Well, you know, and the interesting thing about this, because I've had conversations on LinkedIn with some of my connections where, you know, like one of my friends is like, no, hell no, don't invite me into a phone call the first time you connect. And this is exactly what I do. I'm not interested in following a 5-step system to get somebody to slowly, like I let them know, like, here, I'm here to know you and support you. I'd love to know what you're up to and what your business is about. I'm a super connector. I really enjoy connecting with people. If you want to, I'd love to jump on a call and learn more about your business. I don't say anything about me except that I like to connect and help people connect resources and connect the dots in their business.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the number of people that say yes to that, while it might be low, they end up being awesome. They are connectors. Like they've gone through this mini filtration system where they read my message, they say yes, they get on a phone. By the time we're connecting, that person is either going to become a client, a referral partner, or somebody who now knows me in the marketplace, and generally within the next 3 to 6 months is going to send me somebody.
Yeah.
Like inevitably. And it, to me, like LinkedIn has been so valuable, but I'm really clear on how I prefer to use it. And I don't follow everybody else's system. Like I do it in the way that I want to do it, but I end up connecting with the people that I feel like are really good connections for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a couple of key components to that. One is, you know, that the best way to leverage the platform is to treat it like a networking tool.
Yes.
So, you know, before all this stuff existed, and I use this in examples in webinars and whenever I'm doing, you know, podcast interviews and stuff too, I always paint the picture of, you remember what it was like before all this stuff existed? Like go back, you know, it wasn't that long ago. It was like 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, where you had to go to the breakfast event. If you
in law. That's right. You had to go to all the luncheons. You had to go to the awards ceremony. Like you had to do the things.
Yep. And the key elements of that, and I still remember it too, because for the first handful of years in my career, I hated it. Like, it was painful. You'd get up at 5 a.m, and where I was from, like, it was damn cold in the winter. So it'd be like -30 and you're driving across the city, but you did it and you showed up and you were consistent with it. Right. And then the other part of it too, in those live networking events, was most of the time you had an opportunity to stand up and go, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is who I'd like to meet, or whatever the case was. Right. It was your elevator pitch. We were practicing it back then. And the people that were most successful at networking, they showed up to serve first. They were like, how can I help you? They listened. And they went, I need to introduce you to so-and-so. No expectation of anything in return. And that's what you're talking about.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. I never talk about my business, my work. I ask them, what are you looking for? What would be most helpful? And I immediately connect them to somebody I know, a resource I have, whatever. And you know, it's not like some tricky thing. It, like, if you've ever read How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's like getting back to the basics. Remember somebody's name. Treat them like a person. How would you have a conversation with this person in real life? You wouldn't be shoving your latest articles in their face, you know?
Yeah. And there's a part of LinkedIn that does, you know, it allows for that, like for content distribution and for somebody to look at your profile and go, who's this Heather? And why is she trying to book a call with me? Down the rabbit hole, see content, look at a video, go, oh, this person's legit. Like they're not just this spammer trying to sell me cryptocurrency, you know, like, so that all plays a part of it. And I talk about that a lot in my contents about just the buyer's journey and the fact that it's messy. And like, that article that I wrote like 2 years ago about the messy buyer's journey, it landed so well for people because it just speaks to the idea of, we want this perfect path of like, I'm going to go prospect for business and land new clients. And it's going to be, I'm going to send a connection request. They're going to accept it and invite them to a phone call. I'm going to pitch them and I'm going to have a client. Come on, man. It does not work like that. You're going to reach out to 50 people. And even if you're genuine, like you're talking about, most of them are not going to respond to you.
For every, I've done the numbers, for every 100, and let's be clear that for every 100 messages that I send, very similar, but very much outward facing, I might get 5 that say, yes, let's jump on a call. And they're going to be connectors like me. They're really interested in doing business. They want people to know about their work. They want to be connected. But I will get an even number to that may not say yes to the call, but they'll be like, I really love your message. I really love the way that you connect, you know? Yeah. And so they're not offended by what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not shoving like, here, go to my website, read my blog post or whatever. And I just find that, and maybe it's just because I always have been the person that really loves connecting with people in person. Yeah. I miss it as a mom, right? You know, as a parent, especially during COVID, working from home, but I felt a dramatic loss when I set up a home office and had little people in my life. Like, you just no longer have the ability to meet face to face with people like you normally would. And while networking often has kind of a bad rap, right? You know, you kind of rolled your eyes earlier when you're like, oh, I have to go to another networking thing. Yeah. The reality is those always brought so much joy for me.
And they did for me too, as soon as I started to figure that out. Like, I didn't become really good at networking and selling until I had mentors that I was able to see, like, oh, they show up consistently. They have conversations that are always inquisitive, curious, asking questions, figuring out how can they pull pieces together. And it was typically never about what they sell. It was like, so what's going on? Oh, you know what? My HR gal just quit right now. Ooh, I got to connect you to so-and-so because they might be a great, like, just that stuff, right?
Yes.
And this is where we were talking about before we got on, but like the law of reciprocity and the law of attraction and whatever you want to call it, there is something that happens when you just show up and you help people.
That's right.
And the problem is that most people don't think that it's strategic enough. I need to figure out a strategy and I need an automation system. It's bullshit. Nobody needs that. And I say that confidently now, knowing that you wouldn't have heard me say that a year and a half ago, because I was very in the mind of like, how can we manipulate this tool? How can we use this? How can we do it faster? Now I'm telling people, slow down, do less, go deeper. It's not scalable. There are things that you can certainly outsource once you get comfortable and you have somebody that you trust. But in the meantime, you need clients, go be helpful. And that's my advice.
Mic drop. No, but really what you just said, slow down, like go deeper. It's not scalable. You know what I mean? But this is how you create a client. Like as one example, last year, when COVID hit, I thought, oh my gosh. And the weird thing is I had this experience of going to a small business conference down in San Diego the end of February, right? So COVID is like literally, coming over the mountain at us, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's looming. I knew like, oh my gosh, this huge tidal wave is about to hit everybody here and nobody's talking about it. Nobody is talking about how our lives are going to change. And I tend to be a very intuitive person, but I just felt this like inner kind of heaviness and weight, right? And I knew as soon as this conference is over, like the world is changing. And sure enough, I came home to Seattle like February 27th, and we'd had the first case of COVID. It hadn't really hit the news yet. And then it spread, and then we had all of the assisted living homes and nursing facilities. I mean, it was devastating. So March 1, literally like a couple days after getting home from that trip, I pull my little man out of school. Like we go into hardcore lockdown 10 days later. All of this is happening. And what is my point? What were we talking about right before this?
Just going deep in the relationship.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So what I decided to do, because I was like, crap, there are going to be so many people caught unaware. I was just at a conference with people that I think are pretty aware, and they're not even talking about this. And so for folks that are not yet online, who are not doing what they should have been doing all along to nurture, like they need to get there. And so I didn't know what to do. I just decided like, I'm going to go live every Monday. If they're on my list, they're going to get an invite and I will just show up and help them with whatever they want to ask about. Right. And I did it consistently every Monday, except for a couple holidays last year. And it was so rewarding. It was, but your concept of the messy buyer's journey, it also was a massive reinforcement of that, right?
Yeah. And that I was just kind of on the tip of the iceberg on that. Like essentially the reason why it doesn't work the way that most people think it will when you start looking at LinkedIn as like a prospecting tool is that people have their guard up right now. Like they don't receive messaging well because there's so much either negativity or just push in the wrong direction. Yeah.
And there's so much they have to filter through. This is the other challenge I think we all face with being online is that unless they can connect to you or to me and actually have a conversation where they go, oh, okay, this person is going to treat me like a person. They're going to take care. Like what I have found is that people, even in my world, have to show up and they have to show up again. And they might have shown up to 5 or 6 of those calls last year before they buy something.
Yeah.
And they needed to have their fears assuaged and they needed to understand that their needs would be met and they needed to have more clarity about their path. And that doesn't happen in a one-off interaction online through a digital format.
No, it doesn't. And the nice part about what LinkedIn allows us to do though, is that you can essentially help shape the journey that somebody does go down though, by, having a well-optimized profile. And, when I say that, people go, well, what does that mean? It's really simple. It's like, okay, treat it like if somebody was to step into your office for the first time, what do you want it to look like? Number one, your photo, your background, like just make it look good. Number 2, though, is to actually have language on your like headline and your about section and your featured area and stuff. It's actually helpful that like guides people down a path and like resonates with them where they're like, yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, I can relate to that. Oh, I got that problem too. What's the solution? Oh, you got a guidebook? Cool. Like now they're down this path, right? And this is the messy buyer's journey is that I always talk about like, so you reach out to people, especially if it's like brand new people you've never met before. Reach out to connect. Most of them go, who the hell is this? What are you trying to sell me? The ones that do go, oh, okay, all right. and they dive in a little further. They're going to look at things. Maybe they see a video and they're like, oh, go check this out. They watch the video. And then at the end, it's a YouTube video and they see some baby laughing or some cat video or something, and they're gone.
Totally.
They forget about you. And that's the messy buyer's journey. It starts this pattern of like, okay, so then the next step is if you don't follow up or stay top of mind and keep creating content, they're never going to come back into your world.
No, and you look at the statistics now where it used to be however many touch points you needed to actually create a client. Now it's like 17 or 21 or some insanely high number, right? They have to be able to connect with you enough times that there is at least the start of literally a relationship. They relate to you in some way to be able to then take a next step and say yes.
Yeah, and that's where there's multiple pieces to your marketing and prospecting and client acquisition strategy that you need to do. It's like this, what you're doing here. Like you put together a podcast, but it's also an interview that's on video that can be repurposed into YouTube, that can be chopped up into pieces and flowed onto LinkedIn and transcribed. And I'm sure I'm going to say something that's like, whoa, you already said like, whoa, mic drop. Like you can pull that 10-second clip and it becomes a quote graphic. Like these are all the things that can lead a person down a buyer's journey. And it's really quite simple once you take the leap and you just go do it, but most of the people that I serve, they sit in a state of paralysis because they overthink things. They're really good at what they do as leadership coaches and change management agents and whatever else,
Technicians, we're all technicians in our little bubble, right?
Yeah, but they're not marketers and they're not salespeople, and they view sales as a bad thing, and then it's a mindset thing, and like it's so predictable. Like it's and it's also inspiring though too, because I know that I can help those people, and that's why I stay motivated to do what I do. Is like I see them and I'm like, I've been you. It's 15 years ago, but I know exactly where you are. I know all those fears you have right now.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I connected with a woman this week and she's up to some pretty cool things, but she asked me to describe what I do. And she was like, but the people that you serve don't want a business. They don't think of themselves as a business. And it was kind of this like light bulb moment. I was like, they don't want she's like, they just want to speak or they want to write and they want to make all the money and have all the benefits, but they don't want to actually build a business. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. But it's kind of true, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, how do you talk to those people about what they really need to build? And it's like what you're saying now, they're not marketers. They don't want to they want to do what they're really primed and, skilled at doing. And I think this is the part of the business journey that can really bog people down is like, what? Now I have to go become an expert in sales, and now I have to go become an expert in marketing, and now, all the ABC and XYZs of business.
It gets overwhelming. There's no doubt. And and the acceleration of technology and what's in front of us and what you should be doing, it causes a state of paralysis in a lot of people because there's no way you can do everything. Let's just say it for what it is. And like right now, most recently in the last month, there's Clubhouse, which is a brand new social platform.
Oh my gosh, talk about a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I have no idea even exactly what it is. It's all third party to me because I don't have an iPhone, and thankfully, like,
got it.
But I wouldn't even do that to myself anyways. Like I'm very disciplined now to make sure that I stay very focused, That's not to say there's not value in that platform, but this is what I realize that many entrepreneurs are up against is they see the established base of like, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn. There's a handful of others that may be relevant and stuff. And then there's these new things. Should I go over there? Should I spend time? Before you know it, you spend all day just listening to stuff, consume. And like you said, you don't have a business. It's a hobby because you're not making any money. and it's, so anyways, I think from your perspective, like it's a matter of speaking to the right people even too, right? The ones that are already established. They know that like there's a difference between being a speaker and a coach and having a business where you are a speaker or a coach. There is a big difference.
Well, there is a big difference. And the struggle that I have is I want so badly to help those people that are even in the beginning phases of business really build something that's going to be successful for them. Like really build something that's going to allow them to have the influence and stuff that they want. And to do that, your commitment level has to be so much higher, right? I mean, and I'm talking to myself as well, right? In the midst of COVID, like the levels of overwhelm, we'll just say, have been high at certain points. And like end of December, I lost my VA who was doing 20 hours a week of work in my business. Like, that's the most I've ever had a VA plugged into my systems and everything that I'm doing. And she's a mom of 4 little boys, full time at home during, it just was not sustainable for her. And that, even growing beyond the systems that run themselves, but obviously I need a certain level of support. Even just trying to find a replacement has been a real challenge, right? Yeah. So some of those early struggles that really require growth and pushing through hurdles, I think easily keep people stuck.
For sure. And I think this is why it's so great that you're doing a podcast and you're showing up on a Monday and doing lives. And like I shared with you that I'm going to do a podcast here soon too. Yeah. And I'm just showing up as well and creating content. I've rearranged my schedule here in 2021 to free up my time to be more flexible with my content creation and to be able to do more of like the calls that you're talking about. Because I can tell you in the last 3 months of the year, connecting with some people that were super connectors, because I don't necessarily see myself as a super connector. I'm still building that muscle a little bit. But I have connected with some people that are like, you got to meet this person and this person, and this person, and this person. By the way, I already introduced you. Like I've had some calls like that where I've had like this tightness in my chest.
Like overwhelmed. Yeah.
Oh my God, like how am I going to find the time to meet with these people? And then I'm like, okay, fine. Like I trust this person. They're going to introduce me to somebody, that I should meet.
Yep.
Every one of those meetings I walk away where I'm like, whoa, what an amazing person. We will do something together. It might just be that we'll meet up somewhere and our kids will play while we go surfing. And it might be that we'll do a multi-million-dollar deal, but they're just the kind of people I want to surround myself with, So I'm freeing my space up to let more of those people in. That's really what the last 3 weeks did for me is like, I need to clear my schedule to make more time for the things that fill my cup.
I love that. Well, and that's a perfect segue because I wanted to ask you, because we had touched on it earlier, what is different for you now, right? What are you doing differently? What trends are you seeing that have evolved and that are shaping people right now in a way that's positive? I don't want to get stuck talking about some of the negative trends, but I love that. I love, freeing up your schedule, going deeper, slowing down. Anything else that you have applied specifically to either your personal life or your business that you're doing right now?
Yeah, a big part of it, and you already just mentioned it, and I know you and I just had some brief kind of conversations back and forth about it, but like I've worked with virtual assistants now for almost 10 years, I would say. I've had little blips of it, right? Like at first I was like, virtual assistants, this is a thing? Like, and then I did it and I was like, oh my God, that didn't work. Like, why don't they work 20 hours? What's wrong with these people,
Yeah.
And then I went through a phase where I was like very effective in working with them, but maybe didn't build the systems and the processes, SOPs and stuff. So when like what you've gone through recently, which it sucks. Like, you get to a point where you're like, well, now I either got to do it or I got to step back and I got to go and properly build out these things so that if this does happen again, it's not such a big hit to your time,
Well, and the good part is I have all of the systems documented. Like I've been very good about like somebody else could literally step into the system, but even finding the right somebody else, like that's careful work. That is not something that you can just like throw a dart at the wall and hope it works out.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say, is that's the area that I'm really committed to spending a lot of time in this year, not only for me, because I know that there's so many things I can bolt on to support
Yeah.
me. But when I, like, the last year, what it did for me is it gave me a reflection points of all kinds of things, of like what's working, what's not, how do people react when you coach this way? If you put them in a group of 6 versus a group of 30, is there a different dynamic? Like all these things. And one of the biggest things that I realized was that every single solopreneur should have an executive assistant, a virtual assistant. And what this COVID and the lockdown and everything did was we went from 5 million to 300 million people using Zoom in a month.
Right.
And the world got smaller. And the biggest thing that I think that I've, that's really hit me in the last couple of weeks, Heather, more than anything, is like this, I don't know how else to say it to have the same kind of impact, but I started to actually see my VAs as real people. And it's not that I didn't before, but now I looked at it and I was like these people, I help them put their kids through school. I help them buy houses. Like I need to do a better job getting to know these people on a personal level. So I've been doing that. Like, and this is going back to like, how do you find the right VA? Well, one, you don't just look at the price and find some database and throw a job at, like, if you really want somebody that's going to integrate into your business, you find, screen, hire, train the same way that you would somebody that is your right-hand person, your VP sales, your HR director. Like, treat it like a business. And also realize that you're dealing with a human being, you know, like it sounds, and I don't want that to sound like I never thought of it that way before, but it just really hit me recently, where it was like, if I treat these people like family, like they're a part of my, you know, future vision, they will go through the wall for me, and I will be able to lift their lives like they could never have imagined to. And that's very fulfilling, you know? I love help other people do that.
Yes. And I love that you said that, because I do feel like there are competing philosophies around hiring and getting support built into our business, right? Because even the Michael Gerber, I mean, I've got like 8 of his books over there on my shelf. Like that approach is hire the lowest common denominator and plug them into systems, right? You don't want to be reliant on any one person in your business. And while I get that, and especially if you're developing franchises and literally everything is based on systems, like I think that the concept is important. But what you've just said, like I went through, you know, I talked about spending a couple of weeks at the start of this year, like literally just crying at the drop of a hat about anything.
Me too, Heather. I will say it, maybe not at the drop of a hat, but I had a few moments where I was like, why am I on this earth?
Just heavy, really big, heavy stuff. And I think part of it is just honestly the sheer exhaustion of parenting and working during COVID. And, you know, we've talked about kiddos, and I'm pretty open about our life. And, you know, and I just really believe in being direct and not pretending everything's rosy when it's not rosy, right? I don't do that very well. But you know, we've got a special needs little kiddo, and he's just really struggling during COVID. Like, there's just so much. And as a mom and as somebody who just loves people so much, like my heart has often hurt a lot during this period. And so, and then, you know, my goodness, with the events at the start of this year, like there was so much. I totally just wanted to check out. I just wanted to check out of all of it. I'm like, where is the rubber room? Where can I go lock myself in a cabin in the mountains away from literally every living person, right? Just to breathe. Yeah. And anyways, and part of it was also looking at my numbers from last year, like how freaking hard I worked. And the reality is that to keep my business going, I had to plug in a lot more help than I'd had in years past, which is good for a lot of reasons. I really love getting better at that. Yeah. But what it meant is my bottom line got skinnied down in a way that I didn't appreciate until I was at the end of the year looking at everything in total. But it hit me. What you just said is like, you know what? One thing I can feel good about is that, while my bottom line got a little skinnied down, I was able to pay so much money into other people's economic engines.
Yeah.
That I can feel really good about, because, even my VA, when we bumped her up to 20 hours a week, and, and I intentionally, there were weeks where she's like, well, do you have enough? And I'm like, whatever, we're just going to make it work. We'll find things, or I'll just pay you 20 hours anyways. And, it makes a difference. And this piece about really paying attention to the people that we support and looking at them as people, contrary to the Michael Gerber lowest common denominator, just yes, have systems and treat people like real people. And I think it's a magical combination, but it can also make replacement very hard when you've lost somebody in a system like that.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely demanding that we get very specific with how we document everything that we do in our business, and even how we manage our time.
Yeah.
Like, I know one of the things that was a real, I don't want to say struggle, but we had to kind of stumble our way through it, was how to effectively do meetings on a daily basis and a weekly basis, and create a cadence between different team members that were doing different things. Because we get this fatigue from just being on video calls and sitting in the same damn chair every day and not getting up and going to the water cooler and talking about the hockey game or the football game or just whatever, it just flipped our world upside down. So I think we're all going to look back on 2020, and at least I hope most people look back on it and say, wow, what a blessing that year was, even though it was challenging, because what you said, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that hasn't felt that heaviness that you were talking about, Heather. So let's just acknowledge it and go, okay, the world just went through a major, major shift, and it had to. Here we are, and we're probably not even on the other side of what it is. It's this is all, personal opinion and conspiracy and whatever else.
No, but it's true. It's transforming all of us.
100%. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the people that are able to adapt to the new reality and to make it work for them, not try and hope that the old way goes back, that's who will come out happy on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And thriving,
Yeah, that's
business
right.
and personally.
One of my latest affirmations, I'm just going to show this to you. I am a person who thrives, right? I was like, because the other day I was definitely not feeling like I was thriving, and I'm like, I got to turn this ship around.
Yeah. I can't pull my sticker off my computer, else I won't be able to get stuck again. But I put little stickers all around my computer. Mine says, be accountable to your greatest self. Yeah. It was something that I put there because I realized that, like, when you work solo independently and you're just so remote all the time, it's hard to lean on other people to keep you accountable. You got to find the strength within to actually do it yourself. And that can take the shape of a lot of things, like back to the LinkedIn stuff. It might mean committing an hour a day to show up and just add value. And what does that look like? It's like, go to somebody's content, like it, comment on it, share it once a week. That's it. Just build the routine, the habit to just go do it. Block off an hour every week to do cool conversations like this. And intentionally make the space for it,
Yeah, totally.
That can change people's lives. There's no doubt.
Well, and the thing I love that, I mean, one, obviously about being intentional about whatever we are choosing to spend our time on, right, is huge and transforms everything. But the other thing I've been telling myself lately, like, I don't have to change everything. I don't have to improve everything today, but going back to the, the 1% rule. Like, what if I'm just 1% better in one of the things that I'm doing, or what, making small changes, but have those be cumulative, because I think it makes it feel so much easier to like approach it as, I'm not climbing the entire mountain today. I'm just walking a few steps up.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems more achievable.
Totally.
And those little notes that you showed make a huge difference too. I know that was what kind of reconnected us after a number of years, was the mastermind that I threw together that was really focused around, well, it was kind of like trying to figure out exactly what it was going to be. It was a little all over the place, but there was a heavy component on just having the conversation around
Totally.
And it was for exactly what we're talking about here, which was I reached out to you, I reached out to a number of other people. I was like kind of missing just being around cool people. And I haven't gone to any conferences. You guys want to get together once a week and just hop on a Zoom call and talk about stuff?
Well, but you're right. And even the simplicity of that connection around a theme, or, just really the act of showing up and showing up for each other. One thing that I did last year that I really enjoyed as well. Do you know Jay Facette?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So he teaches a thing called Wine Conversations and Cash, right? Which is really about having a mini mastermind, just one off, right? Inviting 10 or 12 people. And he likes, obviously, as any of us would, it would be preferential to do those in person, but he also has an online version that he teaches. And I just I didn't study. He has like a 52-page manual. I took the bare bones of what he was doing and just ran with it. And I hosted, a handful of those last year, and they were so enjoyable, bringing people together, just like what you were doing in your mastermind, but for a couple of hours, showing up, supporting each other. You follow this very specific format, but like thousands of dollars of business got done. Like people made new connections and ended up joining each other's programs and, supporting each other's paths. And I just think, even if all you can do is one night a month, something like that, in a time like now, it's so rewarding to be able to connect and have those conversations. So
100%.
Yes. Trevor, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I'm not going to do that to you. You've got a life and kiddos.
Yeah, we'll continue the conversation on my podcast soon. And in the meantime,
I'd love that. But for folks that are wanting to connect with you now, where do you like to show up online?
I only show up on LinkedIn. So
woohoo, ding, ding, ding. That's the answer I expected.
Yeah, speaking of focus, it was probably a year ago today that I said, I'm not going to do Facebook anymore. And I was already off Twitter for years. So just Google my name. You'll find me. If you reach out and connect, just leave a note, say that you heard me talking to Heather on this podcast, and that gives a little context. And that's where the conversation starts, is always from there.
I love that. Well, and I will share, I'll share your LinkedIn page if you want. And for people listening, you can find all this information about Trevor, including any links for him, at the show notes page, which is legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Trevor, I know you had an offer, like a free gift or something. I think it's around the linchpin method, right?
Yeah, so I wrote a guidebook back in March that's gone through numerous iterations, and it'll probably go through another major one here shortly. But the beautiful part is that it's actually in a Google Doc format. So what I give away right now in this guide, if you go and you request it, you're going to always have the latest version.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's essentially a guide to how to build relationships in a way where you become the linchpin to their future success by sharing your gifts, by being unapologetic about what you can bring to them, and knowing that not everybody's going to want it. But if you approach it from the perspective of vulnerability, empathy, gratitude, and a clear call to action where there's a win-win in all scenarios, magical things can happen. And it was one of those things that I wrote on a Sunday where I told my wife, I need to go downstairs and write this. It just came to me and flowed out. It was 25 pages in an hour.
Oh, I love that. That sounds amazing. I know. And the attorney in me is like, do you have a trademark on the linchpin method? I know.
We might have to talk about that. That's funny.
Well, it's a great title. It's a great title. Like when it was listed, I thought, I need to know more about this.
Absolutely. And we should talk about that, Heather, because I've been thinking about all aspects of my personal brand and what pieces always come with me through it for eternity, and which pieces are not really owned by me anymore because I sold my business a year ago. And there's always a lot of those considerations, but the linchpin method, there's no doubt the LinkedIn linchpin method. I've had numerous people say to me ooh, I like that. Right?
Yeah, it's a good title. Definitely.
Yeah. It lands. People, I think, get it. Yeah.
Totally lands. I like it. So if you're listening, make sure that you check out the linchpin method. I'll put the link to Trevor's LinkedIn page. If you want me to list your website, happy to do that as well. Sure. Trevor, it's been such a pleasure to reconnect with you. Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think, in the same kind of theme of what we've been talking about, I just want to encourage people to get out there and help each other. Like, just if you have an expertise in whatever it is, whether it's legal advice, networking advice, financial advice, you name it, just go help people and give away your best ideas for free. We have officially crossed into a world where information is so readily available that if you don't give away your best ideas for free, you're going to be stuck with a whole bunch of real cool stuff behind a gate that nobody will ever see.
It's
So,
true. I love that so much, what you just said. I think people are so afraid to do that. And
yeah,
it's like I have a system, like a framework that I walk people through, and I give it away in a free training. I present from stage on this exact same framework, and clients pay me $2,500 in initial consultation to sit down and go through the same framework that I give away for free.
yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that you can't utilize it in other ways in your business. And so, yes, I love that so much because I want people not to be afraid to do that.
Well, and I try to be an example of that constantly too. Like if you want the latest strategies on what we do with our clients on LinkedIn, just connect with me on LinkedIn, follow my content, and download the Lynchman method. It's literally everything that we do. There's nothing hidden because I know that 90% of people won't go do the work.
Right. That's it. That's it. They still are going to need help. They're still going to need help to execute. Yes.
Yeah. And that's so it's a brilliant business model. Go if you're worried about your competition stealing your ideas, well, just go give it away. And all of a sudden, like, you're in a position of authority because you are the person that gave away the brilliant idea. They're going to come to you. You're the proven expert, right?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, so many good gems, Trevor. Thank you again. Wishing you a very, I don't even know the word for 2021, but I'm still very attached to your concept of slowing down, going deeper. So I love that. That's exactly what I want for you and for us all.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, so great to see you.